Welcome to the Breadwinner Energy Podcast. This is your host, Tay Daniels, mama, wife, multi-business owner, and creator of the Breadwinner Energy Movement. In this podcast, we're all about changing women's lives, especially those who did not grow up with perfect circumstances, by helping them step into their highest self era, break free from society's expectations, and become a force to be reckoned with. We help women embrace their powerhouse, most authentic energy, cultivate inner peace, and call in everything she has ever wanted in life. So if you're ready to become the breadwinner of your own life, join me on this journey of transformation, empowerment, and abundance. Welcome back to another episode of the Breadwinner Energy Podcast. Hello, friends. We are back with another episode, and I am, again, not on video today. Please do not be upset with me. But as I said in last week's episode, I just had like massive amounts of brain dumps, and I had to get it out. Like, I have to get this out. And right now, I don't want to be seen on video. Like, I look insane. I look crazy. And for a lot of you guys are gonna be like, no one cares. But like, I am in a Chiefs cheerleader auditions, cut off top, leggings, no makeup. Like, it's not it. So I am not on video because I just have to. Like, this information is pouring out of me so fast. I have to get it to you guys. And I almost even considered recording in my car because, like, in my car, I was just having like massive amounts of downloads. But I was like, no, like, let me get into the office first and record, because I know if I record this in my car, the quality is probably going to sound like shit while I'm driving. And I just won't do it to you guys. So I'm in the office, but I have to get this out to you. So I wanted to make an episode on talking about abandonment issues and how this shows up for you in your life, in your business, in your money, in your relationships, because I have struggled with abandonment issues my entire life. And I have always hated it. And I've hated talking about it. And I felt so much shame and so much guilt around abandonment, but it has played a role in like every angle of my life that I had to make an episode on it. Because if you are a woman, a breadwinner, a business owner that has experienced trauma, that has experienced abandonment issues, and it continues to play out for you, or you have, we're going to talk about some blocks today. These blocks are coming up for you. It's probably abandonment issues. I have had them since I can remember. I mean, I can't remember most of my childhood, let's be honest, but from what I can remember, I know it came from childhood. I know it came from my upbringing. For a lot of you, I think most of you probably know this if you've been listening long enough. But I did not know my biological father until I didn't meet him until I was 13. No, 12. Oh, 13. I can't remember. Young. And then he committed suicide less than a year later after I met him. And so I grew up with my mom, but then I also had a stepdad, but I didn't live with my mom and my stepdad until I was 16. So they were just like together, but we didn't all live together. So basically it was just like me and my mom. And then, yeah. So I know for a fact my abandonment stuff came from childhood. It came from like not having this relationship with my dad. And then my dad had two other children, my brother and my sister, who I met when I was 18. And me and my sister are like twinsies. Like, our childhood pictures, you cannot see the difference. But like, I saw pictures of her as a baby and a child. I was like, that's me. And they were like, no, that's your sister. I was like, there's no way. Like, we are the same person. Which has just been crazy to like finally meet your sister at 18. And it's like, we haven't missed a beat. Like, you would think we like grew up together. That's how like close we are. And we don't live close to each other anymore, which is sad because we used to spend like all of our moments together. And now she's married and she's a teacher and living her best life, but I'm sad that we don't see each other. But anyway, to see like my dad, my biological father, be like around my sister, and then she had that relationship and I didn't, felt sad. Like, I was like gypped of this relationship. And for the longest time, I even thought that like it was my fault that he had committed suicide, because we had just met and we went to dinner, we met each other, and then he was in the middle of a move, which is insane because he moved to like a city that's like 45 minutes from where I live now. But anyway, he was moving and, he said he was going to like come to my volleyball and my dance and all my stuff and like see my stuff and like build a relationship with me. And then I didn't hear from him for 6 months after that dinner. Didn't hear from him at all. And then he started calling again. And I told my mom, I was like, do not answer the phone. Like, I was fucking pissed. I was like, you just came back in my life. You've made zero attempts to talk to me and promised me all these things. And now I don't hear from you. I was like, don't answer the phone. As I was so upset. And then he committed suicide not that long after. And I swore it was my fault. And I went to therapy for years thinking it was my fault. And it wasn't until I got my autism diagnosis earlier this year that I fully like forgave my dad and like almost built this like better relationship and understanding of him, because I am 99% sure he was undiagnosed autistic based on like all the things I know. And there's a lot of people who are autistic that end up committing suicide, and is they just cannot like handle what it's like. And I could go into another episode on all of these things like I have found about myself and realized about myself after finding out that I was autistic, and like thinking through years of therapy, like something's wrong with me. Like, do I have borderline personality disorder? Like, what's wrong with me? And then finally being diagnosed autistic, I was like, oh, that's what's wrong with me. Now it makes sense. And it allowed me to have this like deeper understanding for my dad and my brother too, but my dad is a songwriter and he has music. He even has music on Apple. Like, he is a beautiful singer. I listen to his music all the time. Um, and I don't want to share it with you guys. I don't know if I'm like gatekeeping my dad's music, but I don't want to share it. Like, I just don't want to share it with the world. I just want to keep it to myself. I don't know. That's weird maybe to think that. Maybe it's something I need to work through. But anyway, so yeah, I feel like I had this like deeper understanding of him, but also almost like this deep sadness of like, I just wish that he would have hung out a little bit longer, because like as an adult, I get it, right? As a parent, as a business owner, as someone who's autistic, someone who's like going through these things in life, like I understand. And not that I'm like okay with it, right, by any means, but I have come to understanding like what he was going through and like accepting him. But I also know that there were so many years in my life, in my childhood, that I have been so misunderstood of like overly emotional or like rude or like you're a bitch, you're like super standoffish. And I'm like, I'm really not. Like, I just like live in my own world and it comes off that way and I don't realize. But like friends and family and like my husband has told me like, you come off like really blunt and really just like very direct, which I think serves me in a lot of ways, especially in this industry. But people are like, wow, you're a bitch. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that it's just giving me this, like, I just think that we would have a really good relationship today as an adult, just based on like this deeper understanding of him that I've had. But I have spent years and years and years of agony in terrible relationships and hating myself and not treating myself good based on abandonment issues. I've called in really not so great partners. I've had issues in my current marriage where there probably wouldn't be issues if I didn't have this. I've had issues with money because of abandonment issues. I've had issues in business because of abandonment issues. And I think that this kind of stuff just isn't talked about enough, because it's like there's a lot of shame, right? There's guilt. There's this like facade in the business industry of like being perfect and being a powerhouse and being beautiful and being successful and having all these things and having all the clients and having all the money. And like, yes, like that's great. But also, like behind the scenes of businesses like this, like there is not enough talked about of like real life shit and trauma and how it's coming up for you. And like always depending on other people, like even as the breadwinner, like depending on everyone else around you to fix your problems, being like, oh, I'm going to get a business partner because then it's like I get to like let some of this pressure off on me, like relying on them and putting these things on them, or like I'm going to like only do collabs, or I'm not going to like show up in this area of my business because of like this deep rooted abandonment fear, right? And this can show up in so many different ways in areas of your life, of your business, of like showing up as scarcity, showing up as people pleasing, like showing up as like it it depends too. It's like one of the first ways that I could easily identify it was relationships, and then the second way I could easily identify it was like with my money. But it could also be like fear of being alone. You have difficulty trusting others or trusting yourself. Maybe you're like clinging on to things you shouldn't cling on to, or self-sabotaging, or avoiding your finances, or avoiding certain things of business. You have difficulty delegating. You're super fearful of letting people down. You're micromanaging yourself. You're micromanaging your team. You're limiting your growth. You're limiting your abundance. You are maybe impulsive at times. And these sneaky little things show up in your business and can truly wreak havoc. And I did not realize the what am I trying to say? The connection of them, right? Like I was like, I know I have abandonment issues because obviously like relationships, trust, but I didn't realize how it was like sneaking into my business and my life and sneaking into like my money issues. And so when I was driving today to get my coffee this morning, as I talked about last week's episode, it like, I was like, oh, this makes sense. Like this is coming full circle for me. And most of the time this does stem from childhood experiences. It stems from past relationships. And then you notice it, right? You're like trying to prove, if in your business you're trying to like over prove yourself, you're overworking, you're people pleasing, you don't trust other people. Again, you don't want people on your team. You're clinging on to like certain clients or certain things or certain parts of your past, and or avoiding your money. If you're like excessively spending or excessively saving, or like flexing in between the two, maybe you have some like abandonment around money. And typically if abandonment is showing up in your relationship, like that is also going to show up in your money too. It's not typically like you have abandonment issues in relationships and then you're like secure with your money. Not always, but typically it's like across the board the same. So if you're willing to like work on this deep root of abandonment in yourself, you're going to fix it for your money, for your business, for like trusting other people, for your relationship. Like it's going to kind of like mule into these other areas of life, which is really, really interesting because the law of reflection talks about how things are reflected back to you in your life over and over and over again in different areas until you understand the root cause and issue and you're willing to work through it. So if you've ever been in your life like going through cycles and going through patterns and relationships and going through like the same shit, it's probably because you're continuing to be reflected, mirrored, and showed something that you're not changing, that you're refusing to change. You're like refusing to learn the lesson or get it. This happened to me in relationships, and this happened to me again with money until I was willing to learn the lesson of like, oh, this is abandonment. I need to work on this because now it's affecting all areas. And it still creeps back in. There's like times it'll creep in my relationship. There's times it'll creep in with money. There's times it'll creep in business. And I have to like check it at the door, like, oh, that's what this is. That's why I'm feeling this way. That's why I'm experiencing this. And like re-regulating myself in order to work through it. Right? Like this is the stuff in business that honestly every business owner needs to know, needs to be taught, because if you don't, like this is what wreaks havoc on your life. It's what wreaks havoc on your business and your relationships. Like this is all the stuff that like sneaks in. And when you're a business owner, it's like it comes up, I feel like it almost like comes to the surface faster, like more in your face. But this is like all the things they don't tell you you're going to work through when you become a business owner. You're like going to go through this like full life transformation, really, which is like, it's so cool too, to like really be able to like level up. And honestly, if you're a business owner that's like, you have fully committed to being a business owner, it's not like just like on the side, you're like fully immersed in like changing lives and impacting people. This work is non-negotiable, and you will see how fast your life like literally levels up. Like 6 months ago, 12 months ago, look back at your life. What I like to do, and I taught my students this in 2021, is to like keep a notebook where you keep all your stuff, like all your manifestations and all the life, like the journaling of the life you want to have, and then look at it every 6 to 12 months. And you're like, oh my God, like I did that thing. I accomplished that thing. I became that thing I said I was going to do. One of my students, Jenny Roth, she is like just a gem of a human. Like I cannot get enough of Jenny Roth. I've talked about her on the podcast. I've had her on the podcast. Like I just love her. But she was one of those people who's like, she left my program and she would message me and she's like, I looked back at my notebook and like all the things I wrote when I was in your program have come true. And she's like, I literally just like cried. Like it's so crazy to watch. But you have to kind of work through these. I mean, not kind of, you have to work through these things in order to have this like next level self. Like you can't avoid it. It will just keep coming up for you. And so as I have grown my own life and created a better marriage for my last marriage and leveled up as a business owner and a CEO and having team and working with more clients, like this is the stuff that just has like played on repeat for me. And I wanted to open up this like door of I see you and I understand, and there's no shame. There's no reason to shame yourself and guilt yourself into like being who you are, having trauma, having abandonment issues. Like I used to be so embarrassed. Like I cannot function when my husband goes on a work trip. I used to be so embarrassed, but I'm like, you know what? This is it. Like, this is who I am. This is what I've been through. I have real reasons for being who I am. And the thing about it is, like, these things that are happening in your life for you and have come up are for reasons for you to work through in this lifetime. Like, you have been given this to work through in this lifetime as part of your soul contract. And it's like accepting, right? Like learning how do I accept this piece of me and this part of me in order to work through it, in order to be this better person. This is what we do in Embody. In Embody Breadwinner Energy, there's like no shame. I mean, in none of my programs, there's no shame, no guilt on anything. But inside of this mastermind specifically, like this is the stuff we're breaking down of like, look, this little sneaky abandonment thing is wreaking havoc on your life and your relationships, right? It's like not allowing you to delegate. It is not allowing you to have team. It is not allowing you to trust yourself and your intuition and make good decisions. It's not allowing you to trust other people. It's making you overwork. It's keeping you small. It's making you people please. You're fearful of being alone. You're self-sabotaging. You're avoiding things. You're impulsive, right? Like this is how it's coming up for you. And this is how working on this one root thing is going to help you have better money, better relationships, better business, better life for yourself. That's the work of Embody, because this deep rooted, sneaky stuff comes up in all areas. And when I learned that, and I was like, oh, like if I were willing to fix this one root thing, I would have a better quality of life across the board. Like self-development work is not like a one and done. And it's also not like oh, I have to go over here in my business and do this. And I have to go over in my life and do this. And my relationship and do this. Like it improves across the board when you're willing to do this work for yourself. I avoided inner child work forever. Forever. I avoided doing it. For a part of me, I was like, I don't even remember most of my childhood, and everything I remember is traumatic. So yeah, no, not doing that. And I opened the door to inner child work not that long ago. And I had someone support me through this and like take me back to my childhood home and like loving on my child self, which was so incredibly healing to like give that little inner child girl all the love that she wanted and needed as a child. It was just so incredible, but also I learned a lot about myself that it was like, oh, like I really need to come to terms and love and accept this piece of me. And for some of you, if you're like not willing to crack open this door, your inner child will continue to scream at you until you do. And I didn't believe that. It's like she will eventually go away. She will eventually calm down. When I'm more successful, when I make more money, when I continue to ignore her, she will go away. Her screams got louder. She did not go away. She did not become more quiet. It only got louder. And then it would show up in all the areas of my life and my business. And I was like, finally, I was just so exhausted. I was like, okay, what do you need from me? What do you want from me? Tell me what to do. I'll just get out of my head, right? Like, this is the stuff where we go deep, because this is the work that gets you to that next level. This is the work that you are avoiding. And you keep being like, let me do ads, let me do funnel work, let me get a business coach for pricing, for offers, let me hire a team person to take this off my plate, let me hire a nanny so I have more help at home. And I'm not saying that these hires are not helpful or useful, but if you're using these hires to fix these internal energetic blocks that you're not willing to fix, they're not going to go away. They're not going to go away with the new hire. They're not going to go away because you have a business coach. They're not going to go away because like you're avoiding it. They're not going to go away. If you're going to go into being a bit like a CEO who makes a lot of money, who has a team, who also loves her life and isn't willing to sacrifice herself or motherhood or her marriage to have it, you're gonna have to work through it. But you have to decide, like, am I willing to do it now to work on these internal pieces? Because I hate how I'm internally feeling, or are you gonna wait? I personally wish I wouldn't have waited so long to be multi six figures to do the work, but I also know I wasn't ready at one point. I wasn't ready before then. I didn't understand. When I got into business, I was like, the problem is money. I need more money. The problem is sales. The problem is clients. The problem is my offers. Like that was my thought process. And until I understood the thought process of like, oh, it's like literally my energy. It is my childhood trauma. It is my inner child. It is my nervous system. It is my abandonment issues that keep coming up and blocking me from X, Y, and Z. Then I was like, oh, that's the work that needs done. Because I thought, oh, when I get to six figures, it'll be better. It wasn't. When I get to multi six figures, it'll be better. It wasn't. It was worse. Like the light shined brighter on the issues. But until you get to that point and you're like, yeah, I've got to address this right now, that's when you become ready. And not any time before then, right? And I kicked and I screamed my way to six figures and multi six figures instead of allowing that to be part of my journey. Instead of like walking into my six figure, multi six figure life of like feeling empowered, feeling strong and soft, feeling feminine and masculine, like really understanding and learning myself and trusting my intuition, which I did not have. Like I didn't have that compass to trust myself. I didn't trust anyone, right? Because of these abandonment issues. And I kicked my scream and screamed my way to more money and then hated my life. So you have to decide for yourself. Am I willing to do the work that's going to change me internally and externally? Or am I just going to kick and scream my way to more money and still hate my life until I'm ready to do the work? You have to decide what that's like for you. Embody Breadwinner Energy Mastermind kicks off June 24th, small group mastermind. This is where you are going to be very, very, very handheld. It is one-to-one in group. It is mastermind, but it's also very hands-on one-to-one attention. Slack coaching every single week, 3 calls a month. And this is where you're really going to peel back these layers to do this internal work. This is a place where there's no judgment, there's no shame. And if you've ever been afraid to be in a group setting, if you've ever been afraid to be in a mastermind or a group program because you're afraid of other women seeing you go through this work or other women seeing you cry or be upset or go through these emotions that you continue to suppress, you need to be in this room. And I say that because facing this piece of you that you're so afraid of with group is going to help heal this piece that you continue to block first and foremost. It's also going to allow you a safe place to open up and to work through these emotions that you've never had before. And not only that, it is a place for other women to have proof of that they're not the only person going through this. When I went through this work, it was very, very lonely. Going through abandonment issues and inner child work, it's very freaking lonely. But to have other women doing it with you who are also understanding, who also feel just like you do, there's no shame. There's no guilt. There's no like looking down on one another. There's no competition. It's a secure, safe place to be like, we're hand holding you through this because we fucking get it. And it feels like crap. We know what it's like. And we've also been through this stuff, right? And so this is this like safe, energetic space to allow it to come out. If you continue to suppress it, it will just come out in other places. It will not go away. So this is your opportunity to be in a small group with other women who get it, who understand it, who are in the same space as you, where there's no shame, there's no judgment, where I'm literally hand holding you through the things I wish somebody would have handheld me a long time ago. I wish someone would have had that for me. Like I wish I had a feminine, womanly figure who genuinely cared enough to walk me through this without saying like, get over it. You'll be all right. Go for a walk, have a glass of wine. Like, no, right? And that is exactly what this mastermind is built for. So if you are going through these issues, I see you. I see you so much in me. I truly understand. And I'm here for you. The door is always open. Feel free to message me on Instagram at any point and apply for Embody Breadwinner Energy. And as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will chat with you on the next episode.